Listen to my podcast about sports, about sports, about sports.
Bop. Howdy, Ags. Welcome to the tailgate, home of Aggie football. Ooh. Matthews Elect. Today's broadcast is brought to you by Matthews Electric. Light up your home, light up your life. Give Blade a call if you need some help. Ags, we're gonna get right into it. What a win! 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 Look, Aggies are 7-1 on the season, on a 7-game win streak since the opening loss to Notre Dame, which they should have won. 5-0 in the SEC, first place atop the SEC, all by their lonesome. Just beat the only other SEC undefeated team in LSU. We've got games against South Carolina coming up, a bye week, New Mexico State, Auburn, and then TU at the end of that. But let's start with LSU, the big game at Kyle Field Saturday night, where the Aggies came out on top 38-23. They go into the half trailing 17-7 and absolutely dominate the second half. Absolutely dominate the second half. Let's start just like Coach Elko by saying, "Holy cow, what a performance by the 12th man. Just incredible. Incredible showing out there. That place was ruckus. Ruckus. Love it. Typical Kyle Field, man, when big moments arise, that crowd just got absolutely ridiculous. You gotta love the environment. The recruits love the environment and have spoken since then. I think this team, led by Mike Elko right now, has got a mentality of go to work and get things done. And it is showing on the field. They're focused. I expect them to continue that focus. There's always a question of whether you start getting your props and whether you start listening to the people praising you and whether you take all that into account and all of a sudden, what happens, this team right now has got the right mentality. You can listen to it from what the coaches say, from what the players are saying on camera. It's a beautiful thing. Let's get right into this LSU game. 38-23, trailing at half, 17-7, and absolutely dominate. Let me start off with Aggie offense here. And let me start specifically with Connor because, you know, we struggled with Connor in the game in the first half. There is no question. But it wasn't just Connor. It wasn't just Connor. Let's be clear about this. Penalties, penalties, penalties absolutely obliterated drives in the first half. Just ridiculous number of penalties and that were completely uncalled for and unnecessary that hurt us in offensively. The wide receivers weren't exactly helping Connor out. I was sitting there watching that game, and I was very impressed, by the way, with the LSU wide receivers for most of the game. You watch them, and especially early on, I mean, those cats come back to the ball when it's thrown and hard. They come back to that ball hard. You watch our wide receivers, they don't do that. They don't do that. They don't come attack that ball when it's coming at them. I don't think Connor was getting a lot of help. I thought offensive line wise, he didn't get a lot of help also. Shanahan had some struggles early. He got better as the game went along. I think as things turned into more of the run game, that helped him for sure. But there was times when, he got fooled on some of their blitzes and different things that they had going on, opening up a gate, right? And so he struggled some at times early on. And overall, it was multifaceted level of sort of self-destruction going on out there. Um, so so to start with Connor, was he great? No, by no means. I think that the turnovers in some of the earlier games have him doubting just a little bit. He's sort of slowed things down just a little bit. He's not quite as sure of himself. It's a little in his head. It's a little in his head, which also sort of hurts the situation. I think he's at a point where he's a little bit hesitant to get rid of the ball and throw into tight spaces at this moment in time because of the need to avoid turnovers and the fact that it's such a big aspect of this team to avoid turnovers because defensively we're so good. You know, if we can avoid turnovers, we're usually going to win. So all those things, he's just a little hesitant right now. He's not quite where he needs to be mentally and getting that ball out. You know, we talked about his strengths being the fact that he can see the field and he does those things. And generally that's the case. And I think that here in the recent past, he has slowed that process a little bit. He's not quite as confident in what he's seeing at this moment in time. And to a certain extent, that's hurting him, right? And that's hurting him. He and ultimately, obviously everybody wants to give the credit to the quarterback. Everybody's going to give the credit to Marcel Reed, and Marcel Reed deserves a lot of credit. But it was more than just Marcel, Connor versus Marcel, right? It was more than just that. I think that as you look at this thing, you look, we were sitting in there in a position and going into that third quarter where that offense had really, really struggled. Defensively, our guys did some things also that gave up some points, And so, the defense had its part in sort of where we were as well, right? The big passing play down the middle, missed tackles early on, and we'll get it more into the defense. But when Marcel Brick comes in, so we take, offensively, I've said it before, right? I've said it before. Offensively, with Marcel in there, we're a more explosive offense because of what he can do with his legs, right? But everybody always wants to talk Marcel can't throw. The passing game isn't as good. When Marcel has the conviction to throw the football, he's got a good arm. He can get the ball to where it needs to be. Evidence 54-yard pass to Thomas, where he couldn't have handed it off any better, right? Just on the money. And so for him, it's a matter of still getting confidence in where he's going with that football. But ultimately, his legs make such a big difference for this offense as a whole because it doesn't just create plays for him. His legs create plays for the running game in general, right? What he's able to do all of a sudden opens up the run game for Amari Daniels and Le'Veon Moss, and you could see it right down the middle of the field. The inside run for those guys, all of a sudden after he had taken the ball outside a couple of times, the very first play, pulls the zone read, gets on the outside, scores the touchdown from 8 yards out after the interception. Boom. He comes back later, another big play. All of a sudden, those linebackers spreading. Next thing you know, right down the middle, Le'Veon Moss, Amari Daniels. And those guys started creating lanes inside. It's not just about Marcel Reed. What he does is slow this defense down and makes them hesitate just enough to make the blocks better up front, make the runs better for the backs, and open things up a little bit for those wide receivers. It's it's a benefit to everybody that's on the field. Now, mind you, he only threw 2 passes the whole time. He only threw 2 passes, completed them both. 54 yards down the field, might have well been a handoff to Thomas. And then the little pass out to I think it was Le'Veon Moss, coming out of the backfield. That was another 15-yarder or so. You know, it's hard for a defense to account for it all. It's hard for a defense to account for it all. And what he does with his legs opens up everything else. This team offensively is starting to find a little something. I think Colin Klein is got some things going right now. There's still more that can come of this. We still have to be better as receivers, as a group of receivers, is what we're doing. But the guys that this team has got an identity, right? How do you see it? You see it. Physicality is what this identity is, right? Physicality, whether it's defense or offense. And hate to see those penalties, and those guys got to, sort of bring some of that in. But Ja'Day Walker, that dude, I've said it before. I'm super impressed with the guy. Yeah, he got that penalty, but that dude is out there and he's working, whether he's getting the ball or not. He is going to block. He's going to block. And that dude's working his butt off. He wants to be on the field. We're going to miss him in the first half this coming week, right? Because of the targeting call. Ja'Day Walker's a guy that his physicality shows up on that defense, on that offense, absolutely all the time. The physicality of the offensive line. They're not sort of the soft offensive line anymore, right? Chase Besantis, who was out, will be out this week as well, is a guy that brings that physicality. Reed Adams, another guy. He's a guy that is a physical dude, right? We've been getting excellent play from our tackles and the physicality and everything else. Zoom and then Crownover and Fothery. Those guys are doing a great job. It's becoming this identity for this group. You get the Swede in there as a blocking tight end. He's showing some physicality. The way Moss runs, physicality. The way Amari Daniels is running these days, he's a very natural runner, but physicality. All those guys do it. Add Bussey. Terry Bussey is a guy that's physical, athletic, super athletic, physical, not afraid. He will get out there, block. He'll get out there and put his shoulder down. You need to figure out, and he got a couple of touches, right? You need to figure out how to get him the ball more. Those guys are the guys that really feed this offense because of the fact of how they play. Thomas is a different kind of character. He's still a little bit more of the finesse kind, right? But he creates some of those big plays out in space. Get a guy like Barber. He can create some plays out in space, right? You want to see this team continue to be able to do those types of things. And against a team like LSU, that was the difference. Physicality. You go see, and Marcel still ain't perfect, right? Because you go watch the drive where we ended up having to kick a field goal, got in, I think, inside the 10, get in there and have to kick a field goal. You go see that third down play where he sits in there and he hands off to the back coming across. Well, that was a read play. They had 2 linemen pulling back across to block quarterback GT up the middle if he wants to keep it. And if you go watch that thing open like they just parted for Marcel. If he would have kept that, he'd have walked into the end zone. right? He had another one where it was the opposite, where he kept instead of giving, and he got tackled. Not perfect. It's pretty darn good. Pretty darn good on Saturday, though. Pretty darn good on Saturday. And, for him to come in and, go uh, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Let's pull it up. Let me just so that I ain't lying to y'all. Touchdown, 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 field goal. 5 drives, 4 touchdowns, 1 field goal. And they should have scored a touchdown on that last one. They should have scored a touchdown on the last one. That's impressive. 5 drives, 5 scores. I mean, and 2 of them were long drives. 7 plays for 60 yards on his second drive. 60 yards. 7 plays for 60 yards. Running the football, running the football, running the football. And then LSU comes down, scores, and he responds after a score, goes 4 plays, 75 yards. That's huge. That's huge. That's answering a touchdown from that other team. That's huge. And we've seen him do it all year with those answers. Like the other team scores, boom, come back, put points on the board. Super impressed. But not only how he plays, the composure he shows every time he comes out and speaks after the game. Just incredible. Just absolutely incredible how he comes out and he talks about the team. He talks about Connor. He talks about, the offensive line. He talks about the defense. He talks about the great things and how good the pieces around him are that allow him to do what he does. You listen to him and it's like he is channeling his inner Elko. I mean, just impressive. Impressive to see a guy that's a redshirt freshman handle himself with that kind of poise, with that kind of just absolute excellence. I'm super impressed. And once again, I've said it all year long. I am not down on Connor Wigman. I don't have a. I like Connor. I like Connor. I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's a good player. I like everything about him. Great kid, great family. I just think Marcel's got something a little extra. I just think he does. I just think he does. And once again, Saturday's performance wasn't Connor versus Marcel. It wasn't. The team around Connor had a there was issues there. but but I do think that it is clear to see that this team benefits from what Marcel Reed brings with his legs. I believe that. I truly believe that. Going back to the offensive line, like I said, TJ Shanahan, a couple of early mistakes, getting in there with Besantis out, starting at the left guard. He had a couple mistakes, missed some things. Cam Dewberry, who everybody knows how much I've praised him for how he's played the last couple of years. Cam Dewberry looks too big. Too big. A little bit out of shape. He looks a little slow out there right now. He didn't look athletic. I think he needs a little work. I think he needs to kind of get his weight down just a little bit, get back to some of his playing weight from maybe a year ago and get himself back where he needs to be. He needs some reps too. He needs some reps. I thought he got better as the game went on. But I think he looks a little bit out of shape. I think he needs to refocus himself. Um, Moss and Daniels are still absolute studs. Absolute studs. Um, this offense just absolutely took off uh, with Marcel. But they were able to move the ball some early with Connor too, and then penalties killed them. Penalties absolutely killed them. And that's a problem that we still have as a team. The penalties have to be cleaned up. Um, Coach Elko said it. Coach Elko said it. He agrees. That's something that they got to continue to work on. It will bite them in the butt if they don't get that under control. It was we talk about Marcel being the game changer, but let's turn this over to the defense because what led to Marcel Reed getting that first touchdown was Mays's interception. And this team thrives off physicality. This team thrives off of defense. The crowd thrives from this defense. In the first half, they had some issues. They allowed some plays. I thought Scooby was a little slow early on as far as reacting to things. I thought Brooks had some really bad angles on some big plays. The touchdown for one he missed, and then the long play that ended up down the right side or the left side of the field. I thought to the back, the long pass to the back that ended up down the left side of the field. He took a bad angle on it. So on two of the touchdown drives, I thought he had bad angles that caused big plays. Scooby was involved, I think, in both of those as well. And so you saw a little bit of that caused some issues for this defense in the first half. Missed tackles, missed tackles were a problem early. Bad angles were a problem early. Um, but you see that, and then in the second half, they come out and just absolutely dominate. Throughout the game, throughout the game, this defense stopped the run, and that's what led to the dominance in the second half because ultimately the LSU Tigers knew they could not run the football against this defensive front. They knew they could not run the football against this defensive front. And so they were forced to throw. And then the defensive line absolutely started to dominate up front and get pressure on Nuss all day. 2 sacks. That's a pretty good number against this LSU team. The tackles who, everybody talks about as first rounders were both getting absolute beat up by the defensive ends for the Aggies. Nick Scorton was doing work. Stewart was doing work. Kennedy doing work. Hal doing work. Those guys absolutely freaking got after their butts. In the interior, you saw Turner make plays. He got a little out of control at times with his chippiness. Turner, that comes back to the physicality that this team thrives off of and builds off of, making plays. DJ Hicks is absolutely coming into his own, making plays. See Rodas Johnson get involved. See Regis get involved. This defensive line dominated the run game. Dominated against the run game. There was no chance LSU was running the football. And that forced them to become one-dimensional, and that allowed the defensive line to then dominate in the passing game. Pressure. This defense showed out on Saturday. And where was I going? So, yes, we turned to Marcel Reed. But what caused that turn? What happened right before that turn? Pick. Pressure on Nuss, tries to escape the pocket, gets out there, throws back across the field. Mays comes underneath it, takes it, brings it back to the 8-yard line, short field, touchdown. That's the turnaround. The turnaround was the pick that started that. You know, it's easy to come out and give so much praise to the quarterback. But remember, he showed up on the field. All he had to do was go 8 yards. Next thing you know, touchdown, touchdown. And so, yeah, he gets a touchdown. And then LSU gets the ball back. LSU gets the ball back. And the defense stops them again. Turnover on downs. Turnover on downs. More big plays, more big plays, more big plays by this defense. Just impressive. Like I said, I thought Scooby a little bit of a slow start. He's been playing pretty well. As the game went on, I thought he really, started to play a little bit better. Brooks, I thought it started to play a little bit better. I'll tell you what, man. Torian York, who we talked about earlier in the season, a little bit of a slow start to the season, wasn't quite where we expected him to be coming off of last year. New system, whatever, right? When where we wanted him to be at boy, he is getting there. Boy, he had a monster game. Just getting better and better, seeing the things quicker, faster to respond, getting downhill to the ball carrier. Just an absolute monster. Um, Making plays. He had that interception as well at the end of the game. Read the little pass to the tailback on that one. Just I think he's really starting to get comfortable in this system and has absolutely started to play, at his best. Look, the secondary is not perfect, right? The secondary is not perfect, but they get the benefit of this excellent front, putting pressure on an offense that allows them to make plays on the back end, right? They showed some things, they gave up some things on the back end. That's fine. Rick still shows his youth from time to time, and big physical guys can give him some problems sometimes. I think Will Lees is as good a corner as there is out there. I mean, he's been exceptional. He got called on a pass interference on one, which I thought was maybe probably questionable at best, but he continues to do some things. Brooks keeps showing. I mean, Anderson was everywhere. Anderson was absolutely everywhere in the backfield, sideline to sideline, just absolutely everywhere. They're not perfect, but man, they get so much help from the front. It makes it so much, it gives them such an advantage. And they play that team defense. Physicality, physicality, physicality. Scooby on the breakup on that one coming over the middle, just boom, takes that ball right out of that guy. That receiver didn't want any part of that anymore. Just super impressive. And then Mays with that second interception, right? I mean, you go down in the second half, right? In the second half, and you come in and the Aggies get the ball first. They go 5 plays and punt. LSU gets the ball, punt. Aggies, 3 plays and out. And then it's the pick. Defense just absolutely standing up. Already forced a punt by the LSU offense. Then they get a pick on the next one. Touchdown, Marcel. Turnover on downs. Touchdown. Interception. Touchdown. Then they actually that defense does give up a touchdown in the second half, a big long drive, 9 plays, 78 yards. Marcel answers, touchdown. And then the third pick of the second half, boom. Aggies close it down with a field goal. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. This thing's over. This thing's over. every time in the second half, it just was response, response, response. The defense didn't give up anything except for one drive in the second half against LSU, who's probably the best offense we're going to see all year. Probably the best offense we're going to see all year. Just super, super performance by this group. I mean, you can't get a better. I mean, you can't get a better situation than you had on Saturday. I mean, that crowd was just unbelievable. The defense was physical. The offense was physical. LSU had no idea what was going on. And then for Brian Kelly to admit that they didn't prepare for Marcel Reed, that just shows you what a joke. What an absolute joke. This team is riding high, but I fully expect them to show up on Saturday. And so let's move on to South Carolina because look, going into the LSU game, we said this is the biggest game of the year for us, LSU. Well, you know what? Now, this trip to South Carolina, to Columbia, this trip to Columbia is the biggest game of the year for us. Look, South Carolina's got wins over Kentucky. They should have beat LSU. They should have beat Bama, or they could have beat Bama. And they absolutely rolled Oklahoma. Just like the Aggies, this is a team that's based off of physicality, especially up front defensively, right? This is a team that, a lot like the Aggies, they are dependent on that defensive line, and that defensive line drives everything else they do. This offense is going to have a hard time. The Aggie offense is going to have a hard time because this is probably the best set of pass rushers that we're going to face all year. In Kennard and Stewart, those two guys can get after it. They will create havoc. They're going to make it difficult for this offense all day because of that front four. Because of the front four. Be very, very careful. Be very, very careful. And they've got the guy in the back, number 7, Emunari, however you say his name, number 7. That guy's disruptive. He can get sideline to sideline. He can make, when those guys get pressure, he can go create turnovers, get some interceptions. I think he's got 4 on the year already. So that's where South Carolina can get you. If you don't take care of the football and take care of business up front against this South Carolina team, and they go create some turnovers and get the ball into the end zone that way, that's where they can beat you. They are like the Aggies in the sense that that team is focused around that defensive line. That's not their only unit. It's not their only players up front, but that's where it all starts. That's where it all starts for them. That defensive line is a big, big part of what they do offensively and defensively. Why? Because it gets them short fields. Because it allows them to hold the football in the run game, right? Without having to force things offensively. That defensive line is key. So what does this offense have to do? This offensive line is going to have to hold up against those defensive ends, right? Can Zoom and Crownover and Fothery, can those guys hold up against this group of defensive ends? Can we hold up in the interior against those defensive tackles? It's probably the best set of defensive ends we're going to face all season, including Texas, LSU, Missouri, Notre Dame, whatever other team you want to bring in there on this schedule. They are extremely good. So can that offensive line hold up? Can we take the physicality offensively to them instead of letting them bring it to us, right? Are we going to be able to make enough plays in the running game? Can we get them to control them in the running game? Have them respect the run enough to where we can slow down that pass rush, right? To create big plays. That's going to be the key. That's going to be the key for our offense and eliminate turnovers, right? No turnovers. No turnovers. Because that's where they feed offensively. They get the ball back, short field, score. Big plays. Big plays. Can this offense avoid the turnover and control the line of scrimmage? I think they can. I think they can. I think that there's something to be said about, getting these guys into big formations, right? I thought that that was something that we shouldn't have done as much against LSU early on, where we were trying to throw the ball with Connor. I thought that sometimes the tight formation, multiple tight ends, sort of brought more people into the box, which actually hurt our running game in there when we weren't using Marcel, right? Now, when we were trying to throw the ball. And so if you spread them out, maybe you get those guys out of the box. You're able to create some running lanes inside with the backs and then be able to throw the football off of that, right? But here in this case, it may be the opposite, right? It may be a situation where you get big and run the football. Get big and run the football. See if you can control and physicality a little bit. And then maybe over the top. It'll be interesting to see how we approach that. It'll be interesting to see how we approach that. I expect physicality in that matchup. Our offense versus their defense. That's gonna be fun to watch. That's gonna be fun to watch, and the different things that go on there and the games that are played. Then on the other side of the ball, I think that's where we have the advantage. I think that's where we have the advantage, the clear advantage is our defense against their offense. You've got to stop the run against this team. Raheem Sanders is an excellent running back. Sellers is a really athletic quarterback. You've got to force him to throw the football and make mistakes. That's where you get him. But he's a big play machine, right? Either with his legs or over the top. He's a big play machine. He likes the big throws. They love to use the tight end and they'll use him in play action stuff and get him over the top. Big guy, big 6'4" guy at the tight end spot. They'll get the ball out quick to the small wide receiver, and then they'll use him over the top some on the big plays, right? Because he's a little bit smaller, but boy, he's fast. So you got to watch out for him, right? And so that tight end and that wide receiver, those are their big weapons in the passing game. But it's a lot of based off of their run game. There's where it starts, the physicality once again in the run game with Raheem Sanders and Sellers. And defensively, we're going to have to account for that. We're going to have to be able to stop the quarterback run, and that's going to be the biggest part of this matchup with our defense against their offense is can our defensive front contain Sellers enough to give us an opportunity, right? Can we keep him in check? The way we've been playing so far, yes, we should be able to. I think we will. I think we will. And we're getting better. We're getting better. I think that, who do we use as a spy? Is it going to be Scooby? Right? Is it going to be one of the safeties coming into the box and like a Brooks maybe? Are we using some combination of that with the zone scheme to keep maybe keeping our eyes on them as well. That's going to be a big time matchup for our defense. How much can we control up front, right? How much can we control up front with our front four and York, right? The interior of that. I think this is a big game for Turner too. Jamar Turner is going to have an opportunity to have a big game here today on Saturday. That's going to be exciting. That's going to be exciting. I'm ready for this game. Look, the Aggies are favored by 2.5. I think the Aggies are going to cover. But don't get me wrong. This is as tough a matchup as we're going to have all year because of the physicality that South Carolina plays with. They're well coached and they're physical. Are they as talented as the Aggies? No. They are physical and well coached, and that's going to make it. If you don't show up, if you don't play well, you go on the road to Columbia, they will beat you. They will beat you. I think the Aggies are focused. I think they're ready to roll. I think that they've been really, really honed in on what's going on this season, I expect them to continue to do that. I'll take the Aggies. Questions from the tailgate. Chances that Texas A&M 2024 Texas A&M football team makes the playoffs. I mean, they're better than 50-50, right? At this point, they're better than 50-50. You know, I don't want to get into that. I don't want to get into that. Just like Elko said, there's one big game coming. That's this weekend's. After that, there's going to be a bye. After that, there's going to be one big game coming. That's New Mexico State. For that, they got to go to Auburn. That's a big one. Huge, huge game. At Auburn, where we've struggled in the past. And then after that, it's a big game against Texas, TU coming in. All right. Every week is a tough week because when you are at the top of the heap, which the Aggies are in the SEC right now, you got a big old bullseye on your back, and everybody wants a piece of you. Everybody wants a piece of you. And the day you show up and you didn't quite, you didn't quite get ready for that one, they're going to get a piece of you. So right now it is one game at a time. But let me tell you this. There could be a very crazy dilemma here, right? At the end of the season where you sit in there and you get into an SEC championship game without wanting to be in there, right? I mean, if you're a two-loss team going into the SEC championship with a possibility to lose in the SEC championship would be a three-loss team, you may be out. Not something you worry about at this point in time. Not something you can even think about. But the way this whole thing is playing out, there's no telling how this thing ends up at the end of the season. I love the fact that we are where we are. Every game is so important. Every game from here on out becomes the most important game, and it's a beautiful thing. Thank you, Mike Elko. Thank you. Thank you. Second question, what's the quarterback situation going forward? And we're gonna end it on this. Look, I don't know. I don't know what Elko's gonna do. I don't know what Klein's gonna do. But there's a chance that we got a two quarterback system from here on out. There's a chance we got a two quarterback system from here on out. Depending on who your opponent is and what the strengths are and what's going on there, could be with the deciding factor on decision of as to who starts or who doesn't, who starts, who plays. Maybe you use both guys throughout a game. I think it's Marcel Reed starting this weekend. I think it's Marcel Reed. I think he gives you the best chance to be explosive and avoid the turnover. I think he gives you the best chance to be explosive and avoid the turnover. That's my opinion. Nothing against Connor. Love the kid. Always have. Believe in him. I think he's a little in his head right now. And I believe in Marcel even more. So I don't know. We'll see. Whoever's in there has got the support system of an offensive line that's playing excellent. We can't wait to get Basantis back. They got the support system of a great running game with Moss and Daniels. And they got the support system of an incredible defense on behind them. So you got some good things going for you. We'll see who shows up to start the game on Saturday. But if I had to put money on it, it'd be Marcel Reed. Gig 'em, Aggies, from the tailgate. Until next time.